Single parenting isn't easy. We understand. Most parents don't plan to go it alone, but you can still make the most of this journey for your children and yourself. In fact, if you and your family are on that journey, this podcast is for you. Welcome to the Single Parent Advocate community and to our podcast. And here are your hosts, single parent founder Stacie Poitras, and broadcast journalist, single dad and friend, Darrell Moody.
Hello, wherever you are. Thank you for joining us. I am Darrell Moody, joining you from my studios at home here in Orlando, Florida. This is the Single Parent Advocate podcast. We're joined once again by Stacie Poitras. She is the Single Parent Advocate, and she joins us once again from those beautiful, luxurious SPA studios there in Dallas. Thank you to the fine folks there at Venture X Louisville, the Realm at Castle Hills. Stacie, how are you this afternoon?
I'm doing great, Darrell. So excited to be back home after a weekend out of town. And, it's crazy times. It just seems like we got to just keep putting one foot in front of another right now. It's no matter what curveballs we get, right?
Well, let's talk. All right, let's get the weekend stuff out of the way before we dive into what's the latest with singleparentadvocate.org, because you've got a great story to tell us about your weekend, and it involves some swing dancing.
Yeah. So I always loved to dance. I've danced since I was a kid, and I went to Austin, Texas to actually go see my aunt. She's been very ill. We think that she has had COVID. Good news is she's coming out from under all of that. So super excited that she's all right, and count my blessings there. But then while there was a swing dance competition, which is like my favorite thing to do, and I went and danced Friday and Saturday, and I got third place in Masters, which was really cool. Masters is where you go and you don't know the music and you don't know who your partner's going to be, and so you just show up on the floor with your number on your back and do your best, so.
Now, do you keep like 1940s swing dancing outfits in your car for just such an occasion? Did you have your dancing shoes with you? What kind of shoes do you wear for swing dancing?
So I have swing dance sandals or swing sandals, and of course many of my friends do. I've been doing this for a long time, and just really, I take my shoes in a little bag everywhere I go, so in case I go dancing. Usually
That's
we
awesome.
wear black pants and like a bright colored top, and we just love to dance. It's a wonderful community, and of course everybody couldn't dance for the longest time, and so it was a lot of people, including me. It was my first time back on the competition floor, and it was a smaller event. It was very intimate, and everybody kind of, there were the mixture of masks like we talked about last week, in the back to school environment. Well, there was the mixture of masks at this contest as well. And everybody got along, respected each other's protocols. And man, we danced for hours. It was so fun.
So if I find myself in a dark alley and we're confronted by, some members of a rival gang and they want to have a dance off, you're the person that I want to have with me.
Absolutely. Anchor back, baby, and get ready to swing. We do West Coast swing. It's fun. And there was some country competition people there doing two-step and waltz and cha-cha. It was really neat.
That's amazing. I know you're an incredibly talented woman, but to just show up and win third place at a master's level dance competition.
Well, masters, you think about masters is really, if you're 50 years old and older. So that's why you're considered a master. If you're super advanced, they call you an all-star, right? Or something along those lines, an advanced dancer or an all-star dancer. But if you're a master's dancer, it's kind of like, in golf, you have the masters, who are certain age bracket. But, a lot of those dancers in the masters are very advanced, and so that can be kind of fun.
So that used to be called the Senior PGA Tour. Now it's called the Champions Tour, because we can't call them seniors anymore. So now that's the Champions Tour. But I'm getting older as a golf fan, so I know all the guys on the Champions Tour now. So it's not, it's more fun for me because I know all the guys on the Champions Tour, whereas I only know, maybe half the guys on the regular PGA Tour. So, and I thought my weekend was fun because I took the girls and we went and played golf yesterday. But we did not happen upon a dance competition.
No. But they have them in Florida. There's a lot of folks down in Tampa, Orlando. I know some folks all over the state of Florida that come and dance in Dallas, and we go there and dance. It's a national organization of West Coast Swing. That's what we do.
Maybe when we tackle the subject of dating as a single parent, I'll share my story with you in the audience about when I had a date with a woman and we did ballroom dancing lessons, which I was not prepared for. But that's a different story for another day. So catch us up to date, singleparentadvocate.org. North Texas Giving Day is right around the corner, coming up in just a few weeks. Give us the latest on what you have going on.
Well, so North Texas Giving Day happens every single year. It's hosted by Communities Foundation of Texas. And what happens is hundreds and hundreds of charities register at northtexasgivingday.org. We all create profile pictures and stories and talk about, what our work is doing in our community. And we give all of our fans an opportunity to create fundraising pages, and we get a matching sponsor. And all day long and really all through September, we're building, trying to get everybody to create these pages and promote, donating to support our respective charities, whatever makes our heart burst. And so right now what we're doing is we're really ramping up for that, hoping that right after Labor Day, everybody will get their giving pages made, and we'll be able to get some folks to use their own circles of influence to help fund the work that we're doing, either right here on the podcast or feet on the street in the North Texas area, or online, with all of our social media and digital outreaches. So we're just, excited. And, there's a lot of big charities that take part in North Texas Giving Day, traditional, Salvation Army, United Way, all of those wonderful larger legacy organizations. But there's also a behemoth of smaller organizations that are really looking to get the eyes of the public and have some of these more niche and smaller startups get funding that they very much need for their populations. And so North Texas Giving Day is a time when you can maybe choose 5 charities to give to. It's right on the cusp of year-end giving for a lot of people right now. They're looking at, what am I going to give to in the fall to help support the community that I'm in, because it's a big tax strategy, of course. And so we're just hoping everybody will donate to Single Parent Advocate and help us, with these scholarships that we're looking to provide single parents in college, and all of these computers that we're looking to buy for the kids for school. And then if we really have a good run at it, we're going to try to get some clothing in the hands of about 100 kids that we know about from back to school that are asking for clothes. Also.
Awesome. And what I love what you said about northtexasgivingday.org, cooperating with some of the larger charities. But all you have to do is go to northtexasgiving.org. You can search Single Parent Advocate in the search bar there, and you can come up with your charity specifically. You can support that effort. So that's awesome. Again, it's September 23rd, correct?
September 23rd. And northtexasgivingday.org. Just search for Single Parent Advocate. Pick us, and get your friends on board, get your family on board. This is a big call out to the single parents of our community. And, you can help be a mouthpiece to help influence giving, and that is in of itself a way to give. So we hope all of you will just jump on and help us promote this and find some giving hearts out there that can afford to support our work and our community.
All right, Stacie, roll up your sleeves, get ready to dig in, because we're gonna dive into our subject matter for this week, and that is why does my child's behavior trigger me? So we've talked about this before. There's several of these Facebook groups that I follow for single parents, single dads, support groups, that sort of thing. although the memes I think are the best product of following these things on social media. But a lot of times you'll find different things that are useful. Links to webinars, little videos from different experts. But I found, I don't know if I'd say this is a meme, and hopefully we can get it up on the screen for the folks at home to see. But it's a graphic. It's a woman kind of sitting, obviously beside herself. She's got her head in her hands, and clearly she's triggered. But it says, "Why does my child's behavior trigger me?" And that really stood out to me because that's something that I have been struggling with a lot lately in my life. Is and educate us on this, Stacie. When I say being triggered, what does that mean?
Well, knowing we were going to kind of talk about this today, I looked it up. And technically, a trigger is something that takes you back into your past, whether you're aware of it or not, that you, in a real guttural way, react to. And typically, it's a way that you've lost control. You have a loss of control in the way you react. And you don't really feel like you're your best in the moment, but it's really hard to get that train to slow down once it's really started rolling down the tracks. And that can be the train of fear. It can be the train of, anger. It can be the train of feeling a failure. It can be a train of sadness, fear, sadness, anger, all those different emotions are a result of being triggered as a parent. And triggers come from our past, like I said, whether we know about them or we don't, we're conscious of them. They are there. And I can tell you a few times when I got triggered. Darrell, you want to hear about that?
Sure.
Dishes in the sink. I did not and do not really react very well to dishes in the sink, or dishes around the house, anywhere. I do not leave dishes around the house. And on a day when I'm okay about, my stress level, or I'm rested and I'm, not pressed, I'll either put the dish away or I'll calmly say, "Hey, did you leave that dish there?" with an eyebrow raise. But if, I'm not having a good day and I'm stressed or pressed in some kind of strange way, or maybe just normal way, I react. And I react in a way that's out of proportion to what's really going on.
Oh yeah, it's never adequate for what the kids do. For me, one of the biggest triggers is when my kids leave a door open. Now, granted, I live in Central Florida, which right now it's 90 degrees and 80% humidity outside, so quickly when you leave that door open. But for me, and like I said, being triggered is something that I've been dealing with a lot in my personal life. So when I found this meme, it stood out to me. I didn't initially think we'd be talking about it on the show, but sometimes you need content. So what aggravates me is when they do something that we have talked about time and time and time again, a behavior that I've told them I don't want them to do. One thing I've noticed the kids do lately is when they reach for a cup of water, they grab it by the top of the cup like that. And I try to explain to them, there is a global pandemic going on where people are catching a virus and they're dying from it. And one of the easiest way to spread that is by touching the top of somebody else's cup, and then they go to drink out of it. And then whatever was on so it's, and I explain it the same way every time. But things like that, things that for me, it's I know my kids are intelligent. They make good grades. They're really smart. They're articulate. I know my kids are bright. So to me, it's how do you continue to make the same mistake that we've talked about time and time again? And I know I've made a big deal about it for the purpose of making sure that you remember. And so when they continue to make those same mistakes, that triggers me for sure.
So you lose a feeling of control when they don't obey you, or they don't remember, or it's not as
Well,
important to them as it is to you?
let's look at some of the different options for answers that we have here. Okay, we'll spin the dial here and see where we land. The first one at the very top that stood out to me was it causes you to question your parenting. Which for
Oh,
me, I mean, I'm always constantly questioning my parenting anyway, but when they're bad, and to me, when they're bad about something that I know I've gotten onto them about, well, clearly I'm not getting onto them the right way. So I'm not reinforcing that lesson in an effective way. So to me, I think my first thought is, that's me being an inadequate parent. You know what I mean?
fear of failure.
Every day.
Oh,
So,
I can identify with that fear a lot. One of the things my son and I, we continue to both look back on, and I think I've mentioned it before, was that spelling test when he forgot how to spell the, and I just lost it. I lost it. I'm like, how do you forget to spell the? Like, how does that even happen? I don't even understand how that, and I just, it escalated. Eventually he's in tears.
The same thing.
Yeah. And it's fear of failure, that you're not going to give your child the greatest success, like that they'll end up with better things than you, or, like fear of failure. It's huge. It was and is for me as it relates to my son's well-being, for sure. I think that's pretty normal. Not normal to overreact, but normal. Well, maybe it is normal to overreact. Let's read on.
Yeah, I mean, the other options are you were stressed or irritated already. It triggers your shame or guilt. Their big reactions trigger your anxiety or trauma. I don't think that's so much my problem. A lot of it is, I'm already stressed. We're all single parents. We're all,
we're all already on tilt
anyway. Of course. And I do catch myself doing that all the time. And I yell at them and I'm like, I'm sorry. I've got a bunch of stuff in my head. Anyway, other options. You expect they should know better. That's one of
that
the things
sounds like what's going on with the cup.
Yeah, exactly. You didn't realize their behavior was their way of communicating. Now that one had me kind of thinking, because, a lot of times when you are triggered, all you do is react. You don't process what they've done. You don't think about why. And the theory that it's their way of communicating, although I don't know what they're trying to communicate by leaving the door open again, other than they want to pay the electric bill. Anyway, but let's talk about that. You didn't realize it was their way of communicating. I mean, obviously you've gone down this road before with your son. Does that stand true for you in any of your experiences?
Well, I think so, especially when it came to room cleaning. Chris would tell you that he thought that room should be his, and he should be able to have things in the way that he wanted them, and he did have them where he wanted them, but that wasn't where I wanted them. And so, that ended up being kind of like a passive aggressive, like, impasse, to the extent that, I would go in and I'd start cleaning his room myself, but it was so out of order from my way of doing things that I'd end up, blowing up and telling him to get in there and work on that with me. And we weren't going to do anything until we got this room perfect, and that ended up being an extreme reaction. Like, wait, over here. But it felt, again, like, I think I felt out of control. I felt like, when in my house, some triggers can come from our past, like I said, whether we know it or not. And my mom expected a clean house, dirty dishes, messy room, not making your bed, messy house, like clutter around or things like that. It just really was something I carried forward into my expectation of how I ran my house as a single mom. And that expectation, that level of expectation, I think Chris was communicating that he didn't find very reasonable. And probably a lot of friends' houses who he visited, they didn't have those same expectations either. And so he was communicating that he didn't think this was a reasonable expectation.
Did you explain to him that those people live in a level of filth that they're comfortable with?
Yeah, no.
Clearly something's wrong with them too.
But it was just crazy, the whole difference between how I found peace is when the house was, zen for me, was for him like a museum, and he was very uncomfortable in it. Like it didn't feel lived in for him. And for me, it was like, And so, yeah, dishes, trash, unmade beds, clutter. He mentioned a lot of times plants and pets. Like I expected him to help with the pets and the plants and chores around the house. And he was communicating that, he didn't feel like those should be his responsibilities. They were my pets and my plants, the birds and the dogs and the plants. So I think maybe if somebody's afraid to say the words, they just kind of pull away and don't participate.
They'll just behave a certain way, and that's kind of their way of.
Yeah.
Like my old man who said, "Actions speak louder than words."
Uh-huh.
Let's look at some of these other options here, and thank you to the fine folks at BethRitchieCounseling.com for putting this together. But another thing, it says you feel your child is being intentionally disrespectful. That's certainly something that I've felt before, because I tell my kids all the time, and it's for me, I've had complete strangers come up to my kids at the park and say, "You shouldn't talk to your dad that way." And if I'm being real, that was probably the most humiliating moment I've ever experienced as a father, was having some complete stranger at a park correct your kid's behavior because of the way they were talking to you. As you alluded to earlier, you feel a lack of control in the situation. That's certainly something that you feel. You have an unidentified need in that moment, being angry or tired or hungry, or I forget, my shrink talks about, there are five states where you shouldn't be talking about important things: when you're hungry, tired,
and lonely.
Hot,
hungry,
lonely.
Angry, lonely, or tired.
Sure. All those things. And then the last option that they give you here, you're taking the behavior personally. I'm 100% guilty of that as well. And I don't always do this effectively, but what I've tried to do to combat being triggered in my household is to not react. You know what I mean? Like, let that thing happen and then wait a few minutes. I haven't counted or anything like that. I've been able to control myself, at least when I'm thinking about it. And it's amazing if you do that, if you can discipline yourself to wait 10 seconds and then think about it again, 9 times out of 10, you are going to react differently.
Well, or just remove yourself, for a minute and, just even take some deep breaths, and try to get perspective, if everybody's safe, like sometimes things can happen where, let's say our child is on the sidewalk and they move out into the street in front of traffic. Mm-hmm. Like, to me, that's okay. I'm going to get that baby and I'm going to get him off the street, quick.
Yeah.
But what you say to that child at that moment, can be, scolding and aggressive and really debilitating as far as the child's, the way they learn to speak to themselves. Or you can say, "I'm so glad you're okay. We're going to have to go over, this whole traffic thing again. I just really want you to, be safe," and kind of talk through it as if you were talking to a younger child, One of the things that's kind of crossed my awareness lately, and I really kind of took it to heart, even in my own counseling, is about, the voices of our parents that between, between 6 and 8, the voices that our children hear from our parents up until that time become our inside voices and how we talk to ourselves. And so if we are continually being triggered and communicating from a place of triggering to our children, we are teaching them how to talk to themselves. and they will carry that, and that becomes their, or a portion of their inner voice. And so that's why it's so important to, try to grow ourselves as a parent and read up and try to figure out how do I have intensity and caring and overcome all of my concerns and fears and hopes and dreams for my child when it's like that kind of a moment, such that they're always going to hear that inside voice of affirmation, of love, of safety, of discipline, and all the good things that we want them to carry with them once we're not here anymore, right?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's so hard to not knee jerk and yell at them and that sort of thing. And I do yell at my kids. I'm guilty of it. But, I always tell people, for as much yelling and aggression and chaos as there is in my house, there's also a lot of snuggling, a lot of loving, a lot of, when I tuck the kids in, I always make a point to lay down, on their bed kind of with them. So I'm really close to them, to get that intimacy, because I feel like I scream at my kids all the time. And I do feel like I'm way harder on them than I'm sure their mother is. But I don't know. You ask my older sister, she'll tell you that she's more, my ex-wife is more strict on them than I am. But
well, it sounds like, Darrell, you're really open, though. You have an open heart as it relates to saying, hey, guys, I didn't conduct myself in the...
Oh, I've apologized a million times to my kids, a million times.
And so they're learning from you when they slip up that they can say they're sorry too, or they can apologize.
I hope
so. Like whenever you talk to them about yelling back at you, that's kind of a catch-22, but maybe you can say something like, well, when I slip up and I get, to a point where I'm like yelling too much, and I realize it, I usually ask for forgiveness because I don't want anybody to remember that as the most common memory of me. I want you and people I care about to remember and know that I care for you, and that it's an intense amount of care that I sometimes I don't show very well.
Well, I think for me, the struggle is like, I want my kids to, like, when it's go time, like you attend hut, stand at attention, await instruction, do exactly what I tell you to do it, and don't do anything until you're done doing everything I told you to do. And for me, like, I wish my kids could transition from being kids to good soldiers, more quickly.
Sounds like you may have a couple of creative minds, and they might, need a, I mean, I can't speak for you on this, but, some structure comes in a lot of different forms, right? And if you have more of a creative mind, structure is a little bit more round versus square, like setting, like we talked about last week, setting boundaries. Like, I want you to do this between noon and 2 or whatever, and as long as that's done within that time frame at this, then you end up having more reasonable expectations of what that personality type or that person thinks they can align with, even little minds, they can have ideas of their own. And so, that was one of the things I read about triggers is, a lot of unreasonable expectations that we put on ourselves. Like, I expect my kids to hut to, or in my case, I expect my child to keep a perfectly clean house. Sometimes it just doesn't fit their DNA. And so is it more important to, meet these incredibly difficult expectations, or is it better to kind of work with what you have and adjust those expectations a bit?
I'm sure to some extent I need to adjust my expectations. It is probably a little unrealistic to expect a 6 and 8-year-old to, snap to attention and do what I asked them to do. But but in the case of, we're going to go to the golf course, like I shouldn't have to tell them 4 times to put their shoes on. You know what I mean? And when I get aggravated is after I've told them, put your shoes on. And then I see them 2 minutes later and she's at the bookshelf playing with something and she's got no shoes on. I'm like, wait, I gave you one job, put your shoes on. You know what I mean? Like, to me, it's like, I just want my kids to focus on what I asked them to do when I ask them to do it.
Right. Well, maybe a different consequence instead of you yelling at them, or, it might be, oh, I'm sorry, I guess we're going to miss the golf course today. Nobody's got their shoes on. You know?
And man, I've had to, that's so difficult when you have to follow through with a consequence like that, where you told them that you're going to take something away from them if they do it again, and then they do it again, and you're like, I have to take this from you. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I want to go to the golf course, but I told you that I was going to take it away from you. So now I have to take it away from you, because if I don't take it away from you, it just chips away at my credibility, and you're not going to believe anything that I say, because that you can get out of it. You know what I mean?
And that's part of structure, in our lives, and so.
Well, what I find myself doing now, Stacie, is I'll go to say, if you do that again, I'm going to take this away. But then I stop myself from saying it. I'm like, they're going to do it again, and you're going to have to either take it away.
And then you don't want to take it away.
Right. And it's so, okay, well, what's a less serious consequence that I can threaten them with? You know what I mean? That doesn't ruin the whole day and take away what we had planned. So,
something that doesn't punish yourself.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I wanted to play golf yesterday. Absolutely. And you do end up kind of punishing yourself, because you're taking the reward away from yourself as well. But
what I'm remembering right now, Darrell, is I remember, like, in my life with Chris, he never went somewhere else. He was always, with me. I didn't have a parenting situation where he went on the weekends or any time to another person's house on a regular basis. And I can imagine you feel really intense, like you want the time while they're there to be so perfect. And I know I had that feeling for different reasons. I wanted the life that we had to be so perfect, and I wanted him to have good memories to look back on.
And that's a good point. I mean, last week we were gathering up on the couch to read our Bible stories before we go to bed, and Elise wants to read the story, but of course she doesn't recognize half the words in the, because it's all Bible stories, and she doesn't know who Nehemiah is or where Nazareth is or how to pronounce those words or stuff. So it's like, no, you need to read a kid's book. But I mean, she started fighting with me, and then Claire got upset, and I'm like, forget it, we're going to bed. And I remember explaining to them how upset I was, because I was like, I wanted to have this sweet moment where I'm gathering my kids together and we're reading God's word together before we go to bed, and you two ruin it with your bad behavior. And of course I didn't help it by being triggered and reacting poorly, which I'm sure I did, but it's like, it's so hard to not let little things like that ruin something as nice as reading with your kids every night.
Well, I think too, as single parents, we're working toward our own best life while we're working toward our child's, our aspirations that we have for our children. I think that's true of any parent, single parent or not, but that intense, fear of failure, like this isn't going to be a good memory, or this is ruined, like maybe letting ourselves off the hook. I saw this article online. It was called OneTimeThrough.com, What You Need to Know About Parenting Triggers. And it talked a lot about these 2 books. And maybe we should publish this for all of us to kind of consider listening to on Audible or reading. One was called Raising Our Children, Raising Ourselves. And then the other one was called Parenting from the Inside Out. And both of these talk a lot about, admitting that we're not perfect and being open to learning. if you think about it, most single parents have come through some form of ruin. I talk about all the time: divorce, disease, death, disability, decisions, and all of those situations put us in a place of stress and anxiety and feeling like we've been a failure or we've been rejected or we're not good enough. And, we come from this as our condition of heart to these most precious souls that we have in our lives, wanting to build the most perfect experience for them. And we have to work on ourselves first. And it's never, even now, I'm learning, I'm in counseling still. It's never finished. We're always learning and growing and learning something new. And once we've mastered, 6-year-olds and 8-year-olds, they turn 12 and 14, and then they turn 18 and 21. And, it's like this constant evolution. And then you add a pandemic and culture changes and all the different variables, that you're faced with. It can't be very easy to know what good looks like, because that's a moving target, right? It's a moving target because we're always learning, they're always learning, we're all always facing all of these different things in our environment that change the game on us and make us all feel out of control and like things aren't fair.
And what's that website again?
It's called onetimethrough.com, and the article is What You Need to Know About Parenting Triggers. And then 2 books that she recommended was Raising Our Children, Raising Ourselves, and then Parenting from the Inside Out. I just thought, gosh, it looked like a really great way to get some ideas about, okay, I'm feeling that fear, or I'm feeling out of control, or I'm feeling disrespected, or I'm feeling, like a failure all of a sudden. Like in the park when your child was yelling at you, right? And you're so embarrassed and you feel like a failure. What could you do to diffuse the situation and, get to the point to where you could communicate without totally losing it, and sometimes losing it is not yelling back. For some of us, losing it is running away or crying or burying our heads, like you were saying, the lady in the picture. Sometimes losing it is, self-medicating. Like people lose it in other ways other than just yelling. And so I think all of us, me included, just have to constantly work on ourselves, and being the best parent we can involves constantly working on being the best parent we can. And some of the times that involves letting ourselves off the hook, even though things don't look like we really dreamed of. It doesn't mean that they're bad. It just means they're different.
Well, maybe we can share those links on the various social media pages for Single Parent Advocate.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm
Facebook.
going to. I'm going to
Okay.
put it on the caption for our post today on YouTube, and I'll put it on the caption for all of our listeners. And
What do they say in the comments below?
Yeah, comments below.
My kids would be so proud of me.
See? But yeah, no, I'll put it all up there. But I think, you're not alone in this. I mean, all of us have lost it. And, the quicker we can take that inside voice, that critical inside voice, that's the thing I'm going to counseling for right now, and speak to ourselves in a way that is forgiving and is affirming. Then we can speak to our children that way, even though we feel out of control. And how do we get to that place? I think it's a constant thing, But if we do that work, then we're teaching our kids to have that inside voice to be able to do the same. And that is a pretty positive legacy, I think.
Well, excellent show, Stacie. I feel like I grew as a person. Thank you for your tutelage as always.
Oh, well, I think it's
a
a school of hard knocks.
Well, I mean, tough love. I can take it. North Texas Giving Day coming up September 23rd, northtexasgivingday.org. Search for Single Parent Advocate in the search box there. Donate directly to them. Stacie, thank you as always. And
thank you, Darrell.
You're such a good dancer.
I know, and you're a good golfer.
Oh, I don't know about that. See you, folks.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for joining us.